This is an incredibly intriguing conversation in all of sports. One, because if Jalen Hurts gets paid, and when Jalen Hurts gets paid, he will likely reset the quarterback market. That matters for your favorite team. But number two, the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Howie Roseman as general manager, a friend of the show, he has a very interesting and intriguing way of doing business. Now, Dave, you know about extending quarterbacks very, very well.
More well than I would prefer.
Than you would prefer, because you covered the Dallas Cowboys for 10 years, and you saw that conundrum of drafting Dak Prescott not in the first round, so there was no fifth-year option. Cowboys drafted Dak in the fourth round. But then the Cowboys made what Dave would call a pivotal error. Rather than paying Dak early, they franchised Dak. Why does that matter? Because that will lend a lot of instruction for this conversation. Dave, would it be smart for the Eagles to extend Jalen Hurts right now?
It would be the smartest thing they could do to increase their Super Bowl window. Like, how long they want to be able to compete at this level hinges on when they get Jalen Hurts paid and how much they pay him. And the right idea is to get it over with as quickly as possible. I think the biggest misconception when we talk about NFL football and the way that this all works is the idea that the best quarterback has to be paid the most. No, the next quarterback has to be paid the most. The Cowboys, I'm glad you brought them up, so I didn't have to. I always feel guilty when I do that. But the Cowboys hemmed and hawed about this for 2 years, like, oh, has Dak proven it? Is Dak worth it? I don't know what we're going to do. And all of a sudden, by the time they realized they needed to pay him, the price tag was $40 million instead of $32. You think that doesn't make a difference over the course of a 5 or 6 year contract? It absolutely killed their ability to make the most of him. On top of that, they had to franchise tag him, which when you franchise tag a guy, all 30 whatever million of those dollars hit your salary cap at the same time. If the Eagles were to extend Jalen Hurts right now, I can't guess too much at what the deal would be, but we could assume it would be a 4 or 5 year deal. So we know he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. That's cheap money. That is a small salary that allows you to have an A.J. Brown, a Javon Hargrave, a Hassan Reddick, all of these guys. That's why they can afford them, because the quarterback's cheap. So if you tag an extension onto that, now you've got more years to play with where you can keep his salary down. It's this year, it's next year, it's maybe the year after that. And guess what? The quicker you sign him, the quicker those numbers are locked in. And guess what happens every February? The salary cap jumps. It just jumped up to $230 million from $208, something like that. Like, it takes a sizable increase every single year. So guess what? The $45 million that looks like it's crazy expensive right now is a bargain by the time Jalen Hurts' cap hit goes up. The Cowboys are watching this happen right now. Dak Prescott signed in 2021. Oh, my God, he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. This is terrible. What are they going to do? And now his cap hit is like, or not, excuse me, not his cap hit, but his salary is like 9th best in the league. That's the way this stuff works. I think Howie Roseman is smart enough to realize that. If you remember, Carson Wentz signed, and yeah, it didn't work out. You're fair to point that out, but guess what? The Eagles got that over with quickly. So by the time Carson Wentz fell off the cliff, it was easier to part ways with him. That stuff all plays together, and we have years and years of evidence that suggests that the faster you do this, the better it is for everybody. That was a lot. I hope it was. Like, I hope I wasn't rambling, but
I like the.
I've lived this for way too long as somebody who covers the Cowboys. I'm telling you, get the contract done. It's better for everybody in the long run.
Appreciate the passion with that answer. It was very insightful. Will Blackmon, bring in your 12 years of NFL experience insight. Would it be smart for the Eagles to extend Hurts this offseason?
Yeah, it would be beyond wise to do so. We already know, we hear this nonstop, that it is a quarterback league, right? Eagles have their guy. It is clear cut, especially the way teams should evaluate quarterback. They're so busy looking at, the big arm talent, whatever, a cool personality, but you want a guy who can legit lead a team when it matters. I have this new mantra where I'm like, you got to be able to meditate in a hurricane. And for him, Jalen Hurts, there is not one box that you cannot check off on the type of quarterback and person and player that he is. And so it is clear. And plus, I don't need to see him do this next year. I don't need an encore. I've seen everything. There's no better evaluation than what he did this year. He is the constant leader for that football team. And also, too, like, it's going to be great. They have an incredible draft picks coming up, 2 2s. They got a 1 and a 3rd. But you did mention like Hargrave. They do have a bunch of other free agents, but they are older in terms of Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Bradbury, and Hargrave. What's going to do with that? But get your quarterback. You have him now. He's in the building. Don't even think about it.
Okay, let me pose something, though, Will, and let me pose something, Dave, Joy, obviously you as well. As somebody who has literally watched every single Eagles game, along with playing in them dating back a decade now, I've seen the highs and lows of Eagles quarterbacks. I showed up in 2013. Michael Vick was the starter. Michael Vick was on his way out. Nick Foles is on his way in. Nick Foles gets hurt. Sanchez takes over. Nick Foles takes over again. They trade Nick Foles. Sam Bradford comes in. Well, enter Carson Wentz by 2016. Everything went great for Carson Wentz by 2016. By 2017, the Eagles were not only in the Super Bowl, they won the Super Bowl. Howie Roseman pays Carson Wentz. He should have. Carson Wentz, small school kid, big-time arm, leads his team to the playoffs. Nick Foles finishes it, takes the baton, wins the Super Bowl, 6'5", 230. Carson Wentz was beloved by everybody at the time. Everything went great. Howie Roseman pays Carson Wentz, I believe, an NFL leading $130 million, something around that mark. Within 3 years, Carson Wentz is no longer on the roster. The Eagles have drafted Jalen Hurts, and there is nothing but utter turmoil within the organization, not just with Carson Wentz, but with the head coach, Doug Peterson, as well. So clearly there can be, or at least has been, Joy, some risk associated with the Eagles paying a quarterback who they believed in, a quarterback who they trusted, a quarterback who helped them throughout the course of the season on their route to a Super Bowl. Is there any risk in paying Jalen Hurts?
No, there's no risk. And Howie, you could have just called me and asked me about Carson because I was way early to that train. I never saw it with Carson. Everybody else did. I guess the big arm was very exciting. Sort of an MVP season. Dak Prescott's had a better career than Carson Wentz.
It's not even debatable.
Yeah. I mean, he has a Super Bowl ring, I guess, so you can count that. But you always have to pay your quarterback early, particularly when you know what he's capable of doing, which we just watched Jalen do over the course of an entire season and in a Super Bowl. You do not wait. Don't wait. Look what's happening with Lamar Jackson right now. You're talking about Jalen might reset the market. You got Joe Burrow coming down.
Yep.
You got Justin Herbert. Come on down, Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Get your check.
A lot of money spent.
You've got Lamar Jackson still trying to get paid. And then there's still the Deshaun Watson contract over there looming over everybody. So, yes, every moment that you wait, it could get worse and worse. And those two names in Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert could make it a lot worse for everyone. They will. But you mentioned $130 million. That's like a great contract right now. Mm-hmm. And for all, as bad as it went with Carson Wentz, they were able to move on from him because there will always be a taker for a quarterback. There's more teams that need quarterbacks than quarterbacks are available right now as the NFL currently stands, and that's with the draft coming up. With the assumption that quarterbacks will go 1 and 2 in this draft, there's still a whole list of teams that need quarterbacks. So if it doesn't work out with Jalen Hurts, which I don't anticipate will happen at all, you can still move off of this. Yeah, the Eagles had some bumpy times, but in a 6-year span, they've been to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. It wasn't that bad.
Right.
Keep in mind, the Eagles haven't missed the playoffs since they traded Carson Wentz. Like, they immediately pivoted to Jalen Hurts, who got them as a wild card spot, and then they made a Super Bowl run. Like, there's very little risk because the earlier you do it, again, we all know these deals don't mean what they say.
Yeah, they don't.
If you sign
it can be a 5-year deal and you really can get out of it in 3.
You can get away from any deal in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So who gives you the best chance to get back to a Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts, who just did it, or starting all over? Just start the clock.
Here, to me, would be the risk, though, is rather than, Dave, you brought up the point yesterday. The reason you didn't have Jalen Hurts conclusively in your top 5 is because why?
Too small of a sample size. I need to see him do it again.
Need to see him do it again. So if there's too small of a sample size to put Jalen Hurts in your top 5, and this isn't just an exclusive to Dave Helman thing, this is a reasonable take I've seen on social media by several different analysts, then you could also say there's too small of a sample size to give somebody $120, $140 million.
But these are 2 completely different conversations. This is in terms of he is what's best for that team, what they need and where they are right now. So you pay him based on that. And you can say, yeah, perhaps maybe he's not top 5 quarterback overall talent, but for what he is for that organization, yes, he should get paid. And plus, in terms of the risk, like that's what an entrepreneur is. That's what business is someone who operates or organizes businesses taking on financial risk. And that's what you do. So in terms of that, I think those are 2 separate discussions. when you mentioned where is he ranked among the top 5 quarterbacks, you can put, a couple or 4 or 5 ahead of him.
Yep.
But for what he is for that organization, it's totally different. He deserves to get paid.
Let me ask you this, though, Will. Don't you think, and you are an entrepreneur, you have a thriving wine company, a thriving wine business. Isn't the best way to mitigate risk?
By the way, we all look like wine, right? I got Burgundy, little Bordeaux there.
Hey.
Look.
I already
Sorry.
shamelessly plugged
I am a
you.
red wine
You
man.
didn't have to, see my plug and raise it. I kind of did my job. Don't you think the best way to mitigate risk is to acquire more information? The issue with Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz was a baller very early on, but we never saw Carson Wentz have back-to-back great seasons, or at least healthy seasons.
You know what you saw?
What'd you see?
You saw Jalen Hurts get hurt, and they lost 2 games.
You did see that.
That's what you saw.
But you also saw, but the problem is, and we don't have time for the parallels,
For
but
sure.
my thought process is, Dave, you need to see more, at least to put him in your top 5, then how do you not need to see more to pay him $150, $200 million guaranteed?
Because again, for me, this is all about a clock that's ticking. He's done this. That means the price tag is what it is. It has become that. You can either argue with it or you can make peace with it. And I think, seriously, make peace with it or move on. And I've said this from the beginning. If there's a GM, you think about having 2 first-round picks. If there's a GM that would do it, it might be Howie Roseman. But when you think about what he brings from an intangible standpoint, what he means to that locker room, and what it would mean in that locker room if he didn't get paid, you can't forget about that type of stuff.
You can't find that again.
You're way better off. And again, keep in mind, extending him in a weird way buys you more cap space to keep this team together in the longer run. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I promise you it's true. For all of those reasons, yes, I haven't seen enough to think that he's clearly one of the 5 best. I've seen enough to know he can get you to a Super Bowl because he just did it.
Yeah.
So what are you arguing about?
And 1 seed.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.